Boker Tov, good morning on this fine Sonntag in the free, as we would say in Yiddish, Sunday morning. And that means it's Torah time. It's Torah time, learning time, refresh our soul, energize our neshama for the rest of the week. And the best way to do so is with Torah study. So, you might have seen the title of the class, and that's a story that we will talk about. It's a pretty powerful story. It at least definitely got me somewhat, it got to my kishkes, as we say, got to my soul. And I'm going to share a story with you, but within the context of learning some Torah over here and its message, as we always take that to heart. Okay, first, let's begin with giving some tzedakah, right? We always give a little charity, so Hashem should bless you and I, that today's Torah discussion should be meaningful, inspirational, should find its mark, should have impact. So here we go. We start with some tzedakah. See, if you have some tzedakah, please put in some tzedakah. Of course, you're always welcome to give to tzedakah, to Chabad of Coral Springs, with pleasure. Let's go ahead and make a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyah bidvaro. This morning we have a little bit water instead of coffee, but nevertheless the same blessing. And so where are we holding over here? We're holding, I have the Chumash, one of the Chumashim, one of the Bibles that we have here, of the many. And today we're going to talk about what might seem to be somewhat of a boring law, although God forbid to say anything about the Torah is boring, but that's why I say seemingly. But every single passage in the Torah, every single word in the Torah, every single letter in the Torah has multiple layers of meaning. So in the portion that we read yesterday, we learned about all the laws of leprosy. I start with the opening verse in Parshat Tazria, that is chapter 13 in Leviticus, verse 1. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aharon lemor. God spoke to Moses and Aaron so to say. And the Torah begins, Adam, a man. Ki yiyev v'or, Adam here means sort of the generic man. Ki yiyev v'or b'saro se'eso sapachas o v'heres. A man that will have on his skin a blemish, which is either a se'es or a sapachas or a beheres. These are different names of leprosy or blemishes on the skin. V'huvel hakohen, and it should be brought that he or she should be brought to the kohen, or al-achad mibanav hakohanim, or to the future children of Kohanim, who are all Kohanim. If you're a Kohen, as I am, by the way, a proud Kohen, if you are a Kohen, please give us a thumbs up. I want to know who are the Kohanim out there, members of my tribe. So the Torah continues in verse 3, V'ro'o haKohen es hanoga, and the Kohen will see the noga, the leprosy, the blemish, Ba'or habasar, on the skin of the flesh. And the Torah says some details about Tzer B'nega. I'm just going to read this in the Hebrew. Hafach lavan, umare hanega amok me'or psaro, nega tzarasu. V'ra'o haKohen, the Kohen will see the blemish, v'timei oso, and he will render him. Him here could be the blemish, him here could be the person, will make it. But as Rashi explains, Yomar lo, the also here means to the person. He will say, Tamei ata, you are impure. And then the Torah goes on to tell us more details of different blemishes and what the process of becoming pure is and so on. And there are insights and stuff we could learn on all of this. I do want to say the story that I'm going to share, in my mind, is a pretty incredible story. I'll just share that. Okay. Learning this verse, a couple of questions. The Torah says if there's a blemish, v'ro'ah kohen, the Kohen has to be brought to the Kohen. The Kohen has to put his eyes upon it. Now, if you read this verse, one of the questions that jump out a bit over here is, it says, V'ro'a Kohen, the Kohen will see as nega, he will see the blemish, and the Torah gives us a couple of details about the blemish, and then the Torah repeats, V'ro'o HaKohen, and the Kohen will see it, or see him, V'timei also, and he will render it, or render him, ritually impure. So this seems to be a repeat. The Torah, every word is exact. This repeat, and the Kohen will see him, seems to be extra, because it starts already, and the Kohen will see the blemish. It could have just as well said, the Kohen will see the blemish, etc., and will render him impure. Why does the Torah say again, and the Kohen will see him, and render him impure? That's one of the questions that's asked. And I want to, before we go to the answer, there's an amazing answer. There's an amazing answer to this question from a very fine, great scholar. His name was Reb Meir Simcha HaKohen. He himself was a Kohen as well, a priest. For those listening to the class and don't know what a Kohen is, I'm sure most of you do know, but some of you might not. Very briefly, the Jewish people are divided into three groups. A Kohen, which is commonly translated as priests, but over here it means the priests who would do the service in the Holy Temple. All the Kohanim are basically descendants of Aharon, Moshe's brother. There's the Levites, and then there is the Israelites. That's how the Jewish people are divided. And Kohen today also does the blessing of the Kohanim. There's different things that a Kohen has the responsibility to do. He gets called up to the Torah first, as there are different laws. So Reb Meir Simcha Cohen asked this question, and he gave a wonderful answer. But before I get to the answer, I want to highlight some other, so that we appreciate the answer. I want to highlight another one or two questions with this whole tsaras, with this whole leprosy that the Torah tells us about, and then the coming to the Kohen. And the Kohen declares and says, "You are tamei." So this in itself is a strange and puzzling ruling in the Torah, in Leviticus. There are different laws of ritual impurity. For example, a Kohen is not allowed to go onto a cemetery because the Torah specifically forbids a Kohen to go and have contact with a corpse, with someone who's deceased, with a grave. There are laws of Tumah and Tahara, of ritual impurity and the process of becoming pure or untomei, non-tomei, purified, and so on. And there are laws. You got to go to a mikveh, and sometimes you got to bring a korban. There's a process. Everyone, not only the Kohen, if you come in contact with ritual impurity, there are different things that one may do or come in contact. If a person has certain, it's also in this week's portion, if a person has certain bodily emissions, you become ritually impure. These laws impact our daily life today less because we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, we don't have the Holy Temple, we don't have the avodah, the service that is done in the temple, which demands everybody, not only the Kohen, to be totally tahor, to be ritually pure, and so on. So many of these laws are not, they don't have a practical effect in our life today until the coming of Mashiach, when the temple will be rebuilt. However, there's something different, very different, with regards to the laws of leprosy, which is also a form, if the Kohen determines that it's actually leprosy rather than just some medical disease, because leprosy is not what is often understood in the general general culture or movies seen about leprosy, jokes made about leprosy. To use the words of the Rambam, when he talks about leprosy, let me see if I can find here the quote of the Rambam, because I do have it printed out over here. Let's see. Wait a minute. Let me see if I could find the quote of the Rambam. The Rambam uses here. Okay, I don't have it. I don't want to hold everybody up over here. I do have the quote of the Rambam printed out, but I don't see it I don't see it right now in front of me, so sorry. But the Rambam clearly says that the appearance of leprosy, and the Talmud talks about this and so on, that the appearance of leprosy on someone's skin is not a medical condition, it's a spiritual condition. It's a spiritual malady, and it's a wondrous, he uses the expression, ois lepela, it's a wondrous sign that a God is sending to a human being, to a person, to send them a message. In fact, one of the most common reasons why one might get leprosy, says the Talmud, and Jewish, and from there to Jewish sort of ethicists, sorry for the lisp, and is based on the talking lashon hara, talking evil talk, gossip, but negative gossip about another human being, and that is one of the reasons, as we already found by Moshe Rabbeinu, when God is telling him that he wants him to lead the Jewish people, and he says some negatives about the Jewish people, he sticks his hand into his, this is recorded in Exodus, he sticks his hand into his sort of pocket, and he takes it out, and all of a sudden his hand is full of leprosy, and as the commentaries explain, that's because he spoke lashon hara, he spoke negatively about his brethren. So leprosy is one of the reasons, is because of certain spiritual wrongdoings, in this case, namely lashon hara, that one might be afflicted with leprosy. Result, when you have leprosy, as defined in the Torah, what constitutes a real nega, a real blemish, is you become tamei, become ritual impure, and you have to mechutz la machane moshavo, you have to be ostracized, you have to be sent out from the community, and so on. Now, but there's something really unique with regards to tsaras or metzora or leprosy, whereas the other, as the other laws of ritual impurity, last mentioned before, like coming in contact with someone who's deceased, or having certain bodily emissions, which is called a nido or a zav or a zava. In that case, the Torah just gives us the laws. The Torah says, okay, if you come in contact with a dead body, or you're under the same tent where there is a deceased person, you shall be tamei. It doesn't say, come to the Kohen, he will examine you, and he will determine how you figure out what kind of omission or what kind of situation was the tent, a kosher tent, non-kosher tent. These are laws. There are many laws in Jewish law about that, but the Torah doesn't specify it. It just tells you, you are tamei. It doesn't tell you that you have to go ahead, bring it to the Kohen examines it, and he declares you tamei. Furthermore, when it comes to all the other laws of impurity, in that case, you are impure, you are ritually impure. We'll just use the term, remember this term, tamei, which means ritually impure, and tahor, which means ritually pure. So, the law of tamei, and tahor is not something that is declared in the sense of, you would think that you have to go to a rabbi. You have to go to the scholar. You have to go to the Talmid Chacham. You have to go to the Nasi, the leader, the spiritual leader, the Torah scholar. Here, there's a very, it's really strange in the sense that even if the Kohen is what we call an Am Haaretz, the Kohen is an ignoramus. He doesn't know Torah. He does not know the laws of leprosy. So you say, okay, let me go to the scholar in town, to the rabbi in town, let him declare, because at the end of the day, is the blemish, there are rules, there are Torah rules, what's considered a blemish, what's not considered a blemish. No. You would go to the scholar would then call the Kohen, tell the Kohen, these are the rules, based on the rules, he's tamei, and until the Kohen declares and says, he is tamei, he is not tamei, he is tahor, he's ritually pure, to the extent as the Torah itself says that if you find out, tells you the power of the Kohen over here, if you find leprosy also in the house, there could be leprosy on someone's body, there could be leprosy on someone's clothing, there could be leprosy in the walls of the house, as the Torah relates in this week's Torah portion. Says the Torah, when you go to the Kohen and you invite the Kohen to come to the house to see if there's a leprosy in the home, now if the Kohen declares that the home has a blemish that renders it impure, everything in the home becomes impure as well. Therefore, says the Kohen, says the Torah the following: make sure before the Kohen comes to the house, and declares that the home is impure, make sure you take out all the utensils, all the furniture, the moving sort of light furniture, take it out of the house before the Kohen comes, so that it does not become impure once the Kohen declares that it's Tamei. This doesn't exist by all the other laws of the other types of Tamei. Meaning, what happens if you discover that for some reason there was a corpse or a piece of a corpse that renders a house impure, and you discover, you have evidence that it was in the house already for a week. Everything in the house becomes impure from the moment you know for certain that the corpse was in the house. You had some fellow living up in your attic for whatever reason, and then only a week later you discover that sadly the fellow passed away, nobody knew. But you have evidence, because the last time you saw him, whatever the evidence is, that he's been there for a week already. Everything in the house that's been there for that last week becomes impure. But here, the power of the Kohen is so exceptional that until the Kohen declares that the house is not tamei, that the house is not tahor, so that the house is impure, everything remains pure. Tells you the power of the Kohen. So, one of the explanations given why in this particular case the Kohen is needed in general, and only the Kohen, and it is even though the blemish makes you impure, it doesn't have a chalot, it doesn't become actually impure until the Kohen declares. It's because of the power of the Kohen, in the sense that a Kohen is always a descendant of Aharon, and we know both sort of halachically, medrashically, based on the Medrash, and of course based on Jewish Hasidic and Kabbalistic teachings, the Kohen, starting from Aaron HaKohen, represents chesed, ahava, love, kindness, and the God tells you, the Torah tells us how, when it comes to the laws of tzarat, the laws of leprosy, where you're condemning a person to be ostracized and not be able to be with the community, or his house has to be knocked down and so on. Oh, who could make that declaration and impact that declaration? Only a Kohen who represents the attribute of chesed, that represents the attribute of kindness, of love. Only when it's coming from a place of genuine, true, authentic love, only that person can examine someone else's blemish and say, you have a blemish, you have something, a real impurity that you have to work on, that you have to seclude yourself, think about it, repent, do tshuva. If you're not the Kohen, if you don't come from a place of the deepest of love and kindness, you're not the person to declare that someone else or someone else's property is tamei. An incredible lesson. So, with that general introduction in mind, I want to get back now to this question, to this explanation of Reb Tzvi Simcha, Reb Meir Simcha HaKohen. And remember, we started the class with the following question. What was the question? The question we asked was, why does the Torah repeat and say that when you bring the person with the leprosy to the Kohen, it says, V'ra HaKohen, the Kohen should see. And the Torah gives us some of the details of the leprosy, of the blemish, of the tzaras. And then the Kohen says again, V'ra'ohu HaKohen, and the Kohen should see him, v'tima yoyse, and render him impure. The word "and the Kohen should see him" seems redundant. Pavos. So the answer is, at least homiletically, after understanding what the Kohen represents, the Kohen is, halachically, we're talking about an actual Kohen, but symbolically, homiletically, lesson-wise, we all have a Kohen situation within ourselves and how we interact with our children, with our students, with other members in the community. So, what's the lesson? What's the deeper lesson of it? What's going on over here? So, Reb Meir Simcha says something very, very beautiful, and then I'll share this wonderful story that, I'll be honest, I'll make myself vulnerable over here. It brought me to tears when I read this story. I shared this story a while back, but it's been a while. I'll share it again. But this is what Rameir Simcha says. He says there's another nuanced difference between the beginning of the verse 3. In the beginning of the verse it says, V'roa hakohen es hanega. The Kohen will see the blemish and examine it. The end of the verse it says, V'ra'ohu hakohen v'timei oisei. Now the whole V'ra'ohu hakohen, the repeat, and the Kohen will see him, as we said, is redundant, not necessary. But there's a nuance over here where the Pasuk doesn't just say V'ra HaKohen and the Kohen saw and renders him impure. It says the Kohen will see him. V'ra Oto. The Kohen will see him. Betima also. Says Reb Meir Simcha, within this V'ra'ahu, just an extra vav, one letter. V'ra'ahu. The Kohen will see him. This one extra letter gives us the answer to why the Torah repeats it. So he says the following. He says when a person is brought to the Kohen with a blemish, and including the spiritual meaning of what the blemish represents, and the wrongdoings that it represents, the iniquities it represents. So first the Kohen looks at the blemish. He has to examine the blemish. He has to look at it and understand what's going on over here. But before he renders his psak din, before he issues his ruling, spiritually speaking, again, homiletically speaking, v'ra'ahu hakohen. The Kohen has to see him. He has to then zoom out from the actual blemish and look at the person. Look at the entire person. And he has to look beneath the skin, so to speak. He has to look under the skin, under the blemish. V'ra'ahu hakohen. The Kohen has to see him or her. Has to see the person. Has to see their essence. What's bothering them? What's the core of the problem? What's the core of the solution? And only then, V'tima Yosef, could he say, you know what? You have to go ahead and spend a week in solitude. V'ra'ahu hakohen. I want to share the story, and then we'll try to bring home this very important point. In the early 1900s, in 1920, I think this was, it was a Yiddish Mädel. It was a Jewish young girl, a teenager. Her name was Rachel Schiff. She lived in Vienna. She was blessed with a wonderful talent. God blessed her with a beautiful voice. She had an outstanding, out of the ordinary, beautiful voice and musical talent. Somehow it reached the what do they call the maestro? I don't know. The head of the world-renowned Vienna Opera heard about this Wunderkind, this wondrous child, and her voice and her musical talent, and he met with her. Somehow they arranged a meeting, and he said to her, I heard about your voice, and maybe even heard her voice somewhere. And he says, I know talent when I see it. I recognize it. I want to make you this offer. I will take you under my tutelage. I will guide you, teach you of how to further develop your voice. And you will no doubt achieve world fame and gift the wonderful talent that you have to the people around you. An amazing offer. Here, a young girl, she gets an offer like this. There was a challenge. There was a challenge, a difficult challenge, a very difficult challenge. What was the challenge? The challenge was that she is what we call in Yiddish a frum Yiddish shemedel. She was a religious Jewish girl, born home in a fully religious, or what today, as we do labels, in a full Orthodox Jewish home. An Orthodox Jewish home and is not a place for a Yiddish Mädel. It's not a place for to be in an opera and to be the attention, world attention. She came home. She was all excited, and she tells her parents, "I got this offer." What's her parents' reaction? What would be your reaction? What's your parents' reaction? Her parents start giving her a long speech that absolutely not. We are forbidding it. It's not a place for a Yiddish Mädel. Tough struggle, correct? Both for a parent and for this young girl. The parents said absolutely not. And she was challenging her parents. She was challenging her parents. And the more they refused and the more they said no, the more she pushed back and fought back. This is a lifetime opportunity. And she had a talent, and she loved music, and she loved to sing. And they were adamant, absolutely not. I know what some of you are thinking. We'll address that in a moment. The parents told her, okay, when they saw they were sort of at wit's end, and they saw they weren't getting anywhere with her. Remember, this is in the 1920s. You know, teenagers didn't just do what they wanted. The parents had, even today, in most homes or many Orthodox homes, but today the rebellious child is far more common. Limitations of parental influence is far more common. But the parents said to her, let's go to the rabbi of the town in Vienna, the city. And okay, so they went. And of course, came to the rabbi, and the rabbi went on and spoke with her in great detail and explained to her all the prohibitions associated with a girl standing there on stage singing and so on. And the rabbi saw that he wasn't penetrating, that it wasn't getting to her. She just had this wall up. And as we say in Yiddish, and I love Yiddish, my first language, what we call my mama loshen, it had gar nicht geholfen. It just wasn't getting through. To the rabbi's credit, he saw that he wasn't getting through. He told Rachel Schiff is her name. He told her, right now in town, the Kapitchnitzer Rebbe, he was a holy Jew, he was a Rebbe, he was a very holy Jew. He says, how about we go and we discuss it with the Kapitchnitzer Rebbe? And she agreed out of respect. She was still respectful. But she agreed. Fine, you want me to go speak to the Rebbe? I'll go speak to the Kapitchnitzer Rebbe. And they arranged to meet with the Kapitchnitzer Rebbe. I wanna. Before we get to the discussion with the Kapitchnitzer Rebbe, I want to digress for a moment. Put this sort of a little bit in, in two maybe brackets and so on. I want to insert my own personal opinion. It's not part of the story. I want to insert my own personal opinion because I know that this came up in my mind when I was reading the story, and I'm sure to many of the listeners, it's also coming up in your thought process of, why shouldn't this girl actuate or actualize this wonderful blessing and gift that God gave her? So I want to, we'll address it in a moment. Since I just sensed that this is a question you're all asking. Let's see what happened with the interview with the Kapitchenzer Rebbe. They came to the Kapitchenzer Rebbe, and of course she came in out of duty. She basically said, okay, like a mental roll of the eye, and I'll be respectful to my parents, to my rabbi. I'll do what I need to do, but my mind is basically made up. Because what is he going to tell me? He's going to give me the same line of thinking, It's against Judaism and so on, and he's going to give me a whole list of laws and sources and so on and so forth. But to her surprise, he opened up and he said to her, tell me the story. Tell me the details. Tell me what's going on. So she started to give him the story from sort of her perspective. And she went through and she saw that the Kapitchenzer Rebbe was listening very attentively and very empathetically, which sort of warmed and encouraged her sort of to open up. She opened up and she really sort of poured out her heart and explained the details. And the Kapitchenzer Rebbe was listening. And when she finally sort of finishes, the Kapitchenzer Rebbe says to her, he asks her the following question. He says, tell me, what is it? What is it that you're, what's grabbing over here? What is it that you're looking for? What's the underlying drive on your part that you want to do this? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it what's the word I'm looking for? Self-actualization. What is it that you're looking for? What's your drive? Where is it coming from? So she said two things, because she was a good girl. She was a meaningful girl. She wasn't just, like this rebellious child. She said to the Kapitchenzer Rebbe, she says two things. Number one, I do want recognition. It's a human desire. I do want recognition. I do want fame. And she says, number two, I want to contribute. I want to contribute something valuable, meaningful to society, to the world. The Kapitchenzer Rebbe closed his eyes for a few moments. And then he said to our dear Rachel, he said to her, it is in the depth of every Jewish mother's heart to have a child who is righteous, a child who will give to the world even more than it is for her, for the mother. She has a deeper desire, a deeper satisfaction fulfilled if her child achieves greater things than she could achieve. And therefore he said to her, if I promise you, and only a Rebbe could do this, a holy man like the Rebbe who could see things that we can't see. If I promise you that if you give up this offer, you will have a child that will be a great, righteous leader for our people. His contribution and fame will surpass what you're looking for even for yourself. Will you agree to forgo this strong challenge that you have? And I understand it. It's an incredible challenge on your part. But in the merit of you giving up this desire, which is problematic, not probably, it's forbidden in Jewish law. Would you do so if this will be your reward? With tears welled up in her eyes, and after thinking for a moment, she said to the Kapitchnitzer Rebbe, she said, yes, I accept. Rochel Schiff got married. She got married to a Jew, to a very fine Jew by the name of Rav Yosef Tzvi Wosner. They later had a child called Reb Shmuel Wosner. Reb Shmuel Wosner was one of the leading poskim, one of the leading codifiers, halachic codifiers in the Jewish world of our generation. He passed away 11 years ago. Seder night in 2015. Reb Shmuel Wosner is known all over the world as one of the greatest poskim, codifiers of many modern halachic questions. This is the son of Rochel Schiff. And when once asked, Shmuel himself was asked, Reb Shmuel Alevi Wosner, a fellow himself is relating, he asked Reb Shmuel to confirm whether the story of his mother is true. Shmuel said like this, he says, I never heard the story from my mother. I never heard the story from my mother. But I could say like this, when I went off to yeshiva, when I was a young yeshiva boy, they sent me away from their town to the great yeshiva in Lublin, which is known the Chachmei Lublin, this great scholars of Lublin. My mother placed her motherly hands on my head, and she said to me the following. She said, I encourage you, I pray that you'll spend your time studying our Holy Torah. And then she added this line. She says, I gave everything up for you to become the great Torah scholar I hope you will become. So first, I want to answer the question, my brackets, then I'll finish off how that's applied to our verse that we're talking about in the laws of leprosy. This is a side note. The side note is, God gives someone a talent. Is it not meant to be used? Is it not meant to bring into action? It's a gift God gave you. Why would God put us through that kind of test? Those are the general questions that I thought about and that people have asked me when sharing this story. I could say like this, and these are my personal sort of thoughts based on my sort of Torah sense and education. It's 100%, as a general statement, when God gives us a talent, He gives us a gift, He gives us a skill, He gives us a certain experience, it's meant to be used. It's meant to be utilized, both, especially for others. It's not meant to be suppressed. It's first of all not healthy. And why? God gave you a gift. However, there's one very clear sort of caveat. Not if it's against Jewish law. If it's against Torah, that is why we have a Torah. Torah tells us this is forbidden. Once Torah says it's forbidden, then there's no question. It's forbidden. I remember hearing, maybe even from my father-in-law directly, I'm not sure, maybe from my wife, and my father-in-law, some of you know, my father-in-law of blessed memory, is sort of the world-renowned Hasidic artist, Rabbi Zalman Kleinman. I say jokingly, he's my father-in-law. I did not inherit. He's my father-in-law, he's not my dad. Any artistic talent whatsoever. My father-in-law would have young aspiring artists from the religious community, Crown Heights community, coming to him those who thought they have a talent, they want to develop, they wanted this, and they would come to him, and he would, generally speaking, discourage them from going into the art world. Not because my father-in-law was narrow-minded. He really wasn't. He was actually very broad-minded, very wise man. But he said that the world of art, at least then in the 70s, 80s, in the New York area, there was a lot of unholy association. It wasn't a place for a religious boy or girl, and he would discourage them from getting involved in art. And even though, again, as I say, he was broad-minded. Now, possibly, perhaps, it's just my speculation, possibly, he felt that a lot of these young children were just, dabbling, and if you're just dabbling, and if someone really had a talent, that they had a very strong desire, somehow they would find a way to actualize it in a proper way, in a holy way, in a way that does not conflict with God's will, with Torah. And it is very possible that in this case, with this Rachel Shiv, the rabbi, it's not part of the story, so it's speculation, told her, okay, you could and should use your talent in ways that by Jewish law is allowed. The story deals specifically with appearing on and with the opera. And that is halachically forbidden. And when it's halachically forbidden, it's end of story. It's not God's will. God gave you the talent to use it in places and in ways where halachically it is permissible, encouraged, and so on and so forth. As we've seen, many who've had their talents and they've used it in a proper way. More can be discussed on this particular topic, but that's not the main topic of today's discussion. More suggestions to answer this question. Getting back to our verse and the nega and the kohen, that is the deeper meaning. You see, the first people that Rachel Shiv interacted and struggled with regarding her decision, they were varos hanega. They only saw the blemish. They only saw the problem. And the way they spoke with her is they highlighted how this is a blemish. This is forbidden. This is wrong. It's no good. But they didn't vira'ahu. They missed of looking at the person, at her and her struggle, and being and understanding and thinking of what can we do to direct her, to inspire her, to help her overcome this incredible challenge. That was the difference. The Kapitchen Rebbe was the Kohen over here. He didn't only see the neg. I didn't only see the blemish. Yeah, you got to see the problem. You got to know the problem. You got to be able to identify it, for sure. But he also he looked at her. He looked at her core. He looked beneath the blemish. He looked at what is her problem, what's driving her. How could I resolve it? And then he looked even deeper. He understood that this was a pure soul, and if he, of course, he had the holy spiritual connection to see that there is a solution over there. There's something even deeper in her heart and in her core that would allow her and help her to overcome this challenge. And this is such a powerful lesson for us as parents, as teachers, as friends, community members. When we see a nega, we have to recognize the nega. But we have to be the Kohen. We have to approach it with the deepest of chesed and love. And only then can we go ahead and identify the problem, identify what's beneath the problem, and the proper and best solution and holiest solution, and turn the person with the challenge into the greatest sort of channel, as this story, just using the analogy of the story, as bringing into this world so much greater holiness in this particular story with the birth of such a giant of a son. But there's no doubt that when you vara'ohu hakohen, when you look at what's the underlying problem, and when you look even deeper onto the soul of the person, and how can I help them overcome this blemish, whatever that might be, it will bring out deeper lights, it will bring out greater lights, greater positivity, greater holiness, greater connection to our soul, which is connected to God, and overall, it will bring about to a much more powerful place, even when we don't necessarily understand and we still have questions. But that's how we have to approach our children, our students. And this is the powerful lesson from this verse, from the story of the Negat Saras. It's interesting that in the Zohar, I think it is, or in the writings of the Arizal, possibly, in Kabbalah it says that the word nega, which means a blemish, in depicting the Saras, has the same letters as the word oneg. Same letters, Nun Gimel Ayin. If you rearrange it a little bit, it becomes oneg. Oneg means the deepest pleasures and desires, which represents the greatest revelation of goodness that comes about by transforming the nega into oneg. May Hashem help us to have success both in dealing with our own blemishes and challenges, with those around us that we are responsible for, in the greatest and deepest love. And in that sense, we will merit that Hashem will also bless us to bring us, give us the strength to overcome and overturn the blemish, the biggest blemish, which is exile, and the darkness that's out there, and the hate that's out there, to turn it into something of light and positivity, with the ultimate coming of Mashiach as promised by the prophets, where all forces of negativity will be removed, and v'nigla kvod Hashem, the glory of Hashem will be revealed. Everybody have a wonderful and blessed week. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share words of Torah with you, and please share the words of Torah with others. Have a fantastic week.